In this video, let's learn about The Alchemist written by Ben Jonson. Benjamin Jonson was an English playwright and a poet. He's been popularized for the comedy of humors. He's best known for the satirical plays like Every Man and His Humor, which he has written in the year 1598, Walpole or The Fox in the year 1606, The Alchemist written in 1610, and Bartholomew Fair, which is written in 1614. During the reign of James I, he is generally regarded as the second most important English dramatist after William Shakespeare. Now let's first see the characters of the play, The Alchemist. The first character is Face or Jeremy the butler. This character Face is Subtel and Dol's criminal associate and Lovewit's butler. So the meaning of butler is a man who is working in a very large house whose main duty is to organize and serve food and wine. Next character is Subtel. Subtel is a con man and the criminal associate for Face and Dol. The meaning of con man is someone who cheats or tricks someone by gaining their trust, or they persuade them to believe something which is not true. This character Subtel poses as a respected doctor of alchemy. Let me say what is alchemy. Alchemy is a magic power that can change things. This character Subtel, it evidences several characters in the play to believe that he has the power to create the Philosopher's Stone. Next is Dol Common, the criminal associate of Face and Subtel. The character Face is running a prostitute house in Lovewit's house and Dol is Lovewit's prostitute. Next character is Sir Epicure Mammon. Mammon is Shirley's friend and he's one of Face and Subtel's victim. Mammon, he funds Subtel the alchemy experiments for several weeks, and Mammon is convinced that he will soon be in possession of the Philosopher's Stone. Next character is Dapper. Dapper is Face and Subtel's first victim. Dapper is a law clerk. Next is Ananias. Ananias is Anabaptist. Anabaptist is a member of Protestant Reformation and a spiritual ancestor of modern baptism. Ananias is the victim of Face and Subtel, and this character Anabaptist, this character pays Subtel for weeks to create the Philosopher's Stone. Next is Shirley the Spaniard. This is the friend of Mammon. Shirley always accompanies Mammon to see Subtel's Philosopher's Stone, but Shirley will not believe that Subtel is a person of alchemist who has the ability to create the Philosopher's Stone. But unlike Shirley, Mammon believes that Subtel can create alchemist, that can do alchemist. Next is Kestrel. Kestrel is Dame Plan's brother. This kestrel is actually a type of bird with long pointed wings that has the ability to kill and eat other animals. Next character is Tribulation Wholesome. Tribulation Wholesome is a pastor and Anabaptist. Tribulation and his brother has also hired Subtel to create the Philosopher's Stone. Next is Dame Pylent. This character is Kestrel's sister. Next character is Abel Drugger. It is one of Face and Subtel's victim. The last character is Lovewit. Lovewit is Face's master, and Lovewit escapes the plague that is sweeping around London. It moves to the countryside, and when he returns after weeks, he finds his butler, that is Jeremy. Let's now see the summary of The Alchemist. In the initial scenes of the play The Alchemist, Face is a London servant and a con man who enters with Subtel and Dol Common. These two are Face's criminal associates. And for these two, Face is a master Now Lovewit has fled from the city. He has just moved from London and staying somewhere in the countryside due to the outbreak of the plague that's spreading in London. And the character Faze is running a criminal operation in Lovewit's city home in Lovewit's absence. Now Faze and other criminal associates, that is Subtel and Dol Common, they are waiting for their first victim of the day, that is a law clerk named Dapper. The character Dapper is in search of familiar because Dapper is searching for a bit of alchemical magic that can help him win at cards and gambling. Now, using the situation, Faze has convinced Dapper that Subtel is a respected mystic and doctor of alchemy. Dapper is now arriving and is greeted by Faze in a captain's disguise. Now, Subtel, he tells Dapper that he has a skill to conjure him a familiar, but he is hesitant. The meaning of conjure is to do tricks by clever, quick movements that appear to be magic. Subtel says that he is hesitant because alchemical magic cannot be used to do such immoral ends. Now, knowing Subtel's hesitance, Dapper actually begs and promises him that he will give his winnings, that is gambling winnings, to Subtel and Faze. Now, Subtel, he agrees and he tells Dapper that he must meet the fairy queen to get his familiar, and she doesn't rise until the afternoon. Subtel also tells that he has to finish a ritual. The rituals is that Dapper has to fast and place 3 drops of vinegar in his nose and 2 in his mouth and 1 in his each eye. And then he must wash the tips of his fingers and his eyes, and he should hum and buzz for 3 times. Now Dapper, he agrees for this ritual and he immediately runs to his house. Next, there is one more victim, that is Abel Drugger. Abel Drugger is a local shopkeeper who comes to Subtel looking for advice for his new business. He asks Subtel that where he should place his door and shelves and how he should display his merchandise to guarantee the success out of his business. Now Subtel, he tells Drugger that his new business should face south and that he should place a magnet under the threshold of his door to attract his business. Subtel also says that Drugger was born under a rare star and will be very lucky in business and in his life. Subtel also adds saying that Drugger is so lucky that he might even come into possession of the Philosopher's Stone. Philosopher's Stone is a rare alchemical substance that is said to turn base metals to gold. He also says that someone who gets the stone will be promised for eternal youth throughout the life. Now Drugger believes all whatever Subtel has said. He gives handful of coins and excitedly he rushes out of the door. Now after this, Faze looks to Subtel and he says that he needs a large amount of profit because he is the one who's bringing people like Dapper and Drugger. Now there's another victim who's entering the room, that is Sir Epicure Mammon. Mammon arrives with his friend Shirley. Mammon, he believes that Subtel is very busy in creating the Philosopher's Stone for himself, and Mammon, he already is talking about the Philosopher's Stone, that he has the stone with himself. Mammon, he uses the stone to transform himself into a rich man, and he will cure the sick and stop the plague. Mammon's friend Shirley, he does not believe in the magic of Philosopher's Stone, and he already thinks that Faze and Subtel are the cheaters. However, Mammon argues to his friend Shirley that Faze and Subtel are the legitimate people. Now as they enter the room, Faze is greeting as if he is dressed as an alchemist assistant, and he says that Subtle is very busy at the process of projection. Projection is a final stage of the alchemist process, and after this projection stage, that they'll get the stone, and the stone might be created. Now Mammon, he tells Phase that his plan is to create a change, and he will also use to give himself unparalleled sexual powers. Hearing this, Subtle, he enters and tells Mammon to go home and fetch all his metal and iron, for they will soon make projection in order to make Philosopher's Stone. Now Mammon's friend Shirley, he tries to tell Mammon that Phase and Subtle are the cheaters, but Mammon is distracted by Dol, that is Dol Common, who is a prostitute, who has just entered. Now Mammon, as he leaves, he again wants to meet Dol Common when he comes back. Anyhow, Shirley tells Mammon the doll is clearly a prostitute and they are all together in a prostitute house. But Mammon, he does not hear whatever Shirley says. As Shirley and Mammon, as they leave, there is a knock at the door and Ananias arrives. Ananias is an Anabaptist who has come to exchange Mammon's metal and iron. Now, observing everything, Ananias was not impressed with what Subtle and Phase does. That is, Ananias is not impressed with Subtle and Phase alchemical activities, and he calls them as heathens. Now, Subtle, he asks Ananias that whether he has brought money, but Ananias says that he and his brethren will give Subtle no more money until they see projection. Hearing this, Subtle becomes angry and he kicks out, and he says that he will only negotiate with Ananias' pastor in the future. Now, after Ananias move out, Phase enters with Drugger. He tells him about a rich widow named Dame Pilent. Dame Pilent has come to town with her brother named Kestrel. Kestrel has come looking for someone to teach him to quarrel and live by his wits. Kestrel is also looking for a husband for his sister, and he will only allow her to marry an aristocrat. Aristocrat is a person who is noble and a member of highest social class. Phase, he tells Drugger that Subtle is the wittiest man in London and he can read Dame Pilot's horoscope as well. Drugger, he agrees to bring Dame Pilot and her brother to see them, and Phase excitedly tells Subtle about the widow. Now, as Dame Pilot and her brother comes in, they briefly argue about her wedding. Next, Ananias returns with his pastor, Tribulation Wholesome. Nobody believes Subtle and Phase. Even Tribulation Wholesome also refers Subtle as anti-Christian. But they were all together and they willing to get the Philosopher's Stone in order to do their rituals and for the religious cause. Tribulation, he apologizes to Subtle for the early visit of Anania. Subtle also tells Tribulation that there is several weeks away for creating these stone, but he offers to teach them to melt Pevter. Pevter is a metal, to cast Dutch money in the meantime. Hearing this, Tribulation, he exits with Anania by saying that he will return to his brethren to determine if casting money is lawful. Now Phase enters the room and says that he has just met a Spaniard, and that Spaniard is very interested in meeting Dol Common. Immediately there is a knock at the door and Dol says that it is Dapper, who has returned from his familiar. Now Phase tells Dol to put on her fairy queen disguised and get ready. Subtle enters dressed as a priest of fairy and tells Dapper that he must empty his pockets of all valuables before he meets the queen. Now Subtle and Phase, they tell Dapper that Dapper should be in petticoat and only then the fairy queen will meet him, and he should also be blindfolded. Suddenly there is another knock at the door. It is Mammon, and since Phase and Subtle doesn't want Dapper and Mammon to meet, so they drag Dapper and hide him by giving him gingerbread cookie. Now Mammon enters the room with his metal and iron and asks where Subtle is. Phase, he claims that Subtle is busy in his laboratory, and so Mammon asks about Dol Common instead. Now Phase, he claims that Dol Common is a rare scholar and the sister of an aristocrat. Phase also tells that Dol Common has gone mad after reading the works of Puritan scholar. Phase also offers to introduce Mammon to Dol Common with one condition, that Mammon must not mention his religion and must keep their introduction quiet. And if he is not keeping up with his promise, he wouldn't be given the Philosopher's Stone by Subtle. Immediately Dol Common enters, and Mammon and Dol Common, they go into privacy, into a garden. Then Subtle enters with Kestrel and Dame Pylant. Subtle agrees to teach Kestrel how to be witty, in one condition, that he must meet Dame Pylant. When he meets Dame Pylant, Subtle kisses her and pretends to read her palm and tells her that she will soon marry an aristocrat. Subtle, he starts to escort Kestrel and Dame Pylant to his office, where he can begin to teach Kestrel lesson of becoming a wit and also to read Dame Pylant's fortune. After this, Phase enters with Spaniard. Spaniard is really surely in disguise, that is a friend of Mammon, but he pretends not to speak English, and Subtle and Phase don't seem to notice. Now Subtle and Phase together, they start to insult Spaniard, believing that he can't understand them because he's just pretending as if he doesn't know English. Then sometime later, Phase and Subtle, they remember that Spaniard has come to see Dol Common, who is busy in the garden with Mammon. They just begin to panic, but Phase suggests that they introduce the Spaniard to Dame Pylant, but Subtle hesitates, wanting Dame Pylant for himself. Later, Subtle also agrees to introduce Spaniard to Dame Pylant. Now Phase, he moves to fetch Dame Pylant and Kestrel and convinces them that Dame is destined to marry a Spanish count, which Phase says is the best sort of aristocrat. Now Kestrel, listening to Phase, he agrees and orders his sister to the garden with Spaniard. Actually, Spaniard is Shirley. Now Kestrel, he orders his sister to move with Spaniard to get to know about each other. Now Phase, Kestrel and Subtle, they exit, and Dol Common and Mammon enter. Dol Common, she shouts in anger, but Mammon is unable to calm her down. Now Phase enters and guides Dol to move out of the room, followed by Subtle, because Dol Common is angered that Mammon has obviously behaved lustfully with Dol Common. Subtle also claims that Mammon's behavior, that is due to Mammon's behavior, his projection will get back at least for a month. Now immediately there is a loud explosion from the other room, and Phase rushes in claiming that the stone has burst into flames, and he also says that there is nothing to be spared. Phase also says it is because of Mammon's lustful behavior. Mammon also convinces that his sinful behavior has caused the Philosopher's Stone to get burst. In the meantime, Shirley, that is who has disguised as a Spaniard, he tells Dame Pylint that Subtle and Phase are the cheaters. He tries to tell Kestrel as well, but Kestrel decides to test out his quarreling skills and chases Shirley from his house. Now suddenly Dol Common, she claims that Faye's master, who is Lovewit, has returned and is standing outside. Now Faye tells Dol Common and Subtle to pack up their loot and get ready to leave. Now Lovewit, as he was in the countryside, he's talking to the neighbors, and the neighbors tell him that there were many people who has come in and out of his house all over the month. Lovewit also enquires about his butler Jeremy, but everyone confesses that no one has seen him. Now Lovewit, he goes inside his house and Faze greeted him. Faze has just shaved his looks and he also resembles like his butler Jeremy. He tells Lovewit that he's been forced to keep his house closed because there was a cat who has just come inside the house with the plague and has been gone out for the past 3 weeks. Faze also adds up saying that the house might have been occupied by criminals in his absence. Now suddenly the victims like Mammon, Shirley, Kestrel and Anabaptist and Dapper also appears after eating the gingerbread cookie. Now these victims, they enter inside the house. Immediately Faze, he knows that he is caught. So he promises to introduce Lovewit to Dame Pylint with one condition, that if he is not punished by Lovewit, he will introduce Dame Pylint to him. Now Lovewit also agrees and refuses to punish him. Lovewit agrees and refuses to punish him, but the other victims, they go out to fetch the police. Now Dapper, he is still interested to meet Fairy Queen. So using this opportunity, Faye, Subtle and Dol Common, they quickly pull out their last scam. Now Dol Common, she disguises herself as a queen. She gives Dapper a bird for good luck and promises to leave him trunks full of treasure and some 12,000 acres of fairyland. Now just as soon as the police arrive, Dapper exit. Now Faze, he tells Subtle and Dol Common that they must leave before they are arrested. Now Lovewit, the house owner, he has just pardoned Faze but not the others, and there is no time for them to take their profits. Now Dol Common and Subtle, they leave angrily, having been tricked and robbed by Faze. Lovewit convinces the police that criminal cheaters broke into his house in his absence, and he chases off Faye's angry victims. Lovewit turns to the audience and says he is very happy with his new wife, Dame Pylint. And Faze also confesses that he is happy to get off clean from his criminal activities, and he invites new guests. The themes that are involved in this play is alchemy and transformation. Next is religion. Religion is included because Ben Jonson wrote The Alchemist in 1610, which is less than 100 years after the Protestant Reformation. This is a movement in Western Christianity that sought to challenge the beliefs and practices of the Roman Catholic Church. Next theme is sex and greed. The next theme is deception and gullibility. This deception and gullibility appears with the characters like Faze and Subtle, who tricks people in order to fetch money from them. However, when Jonson lived, the alchemist activity was viewed as a legitimate branch of science. The symbol that is used in this play is the Philosopher's stone. Like I previously mentioned, this stone is actually a alchemical substance that is used to transform base metals like copper and tin into gold and silver and also produces life. In addition to this, the characters also promises to give eternal life and youth to anyone who consumes it. Thank you for listening. Hope this video helped you to learn about the play The Alchemist. If you have any topic for the discussion, please let me know on the comment section. Thank you.